Welcome to Module 2 of the 40 Plus Fit Foundational course. Today we want to talk about the nutrition basics. Dwayne, let's just jump over to you.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
just let's just get this done. We'll
I
chat more
was
about it afterwards.
I was actually waiting a little bit more for the intro to come in, or maybe it's lagging a bit on my side. Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's my brain that was lagging.
no worries
I
at
need to
all.
learn about nutrition
So
so
we
that I can
are
fuel it better.
Yeah. So all the more you need to remember the nutritional fueling for your brain, right? And today that's what we want to talk about, which is nutrition for smarties. And this is just a play on, the brand of books called whatever topic, insert topic for dummies. But with our audience, I don't really want to assume you guys are dummies. I don't think that's very nice. So I call you all smarties. And this is basically a super quick presentation on the most basic, most important things you need to understand about nutrition. And my hope is that by the end of this, you will kind of have that revelatory moment where you understand like, oh wow, actually weight loss is kind of simple. It's not easy to do, but it's kind of simple. Yeah. And then my hope is that at the end of it also you're not going to be so subject to scams or to other kind of like distractions and shiny objects in the nutrition and fitness world. So basic introduction here is why is nutrition the key to weight loss and muscle gain? Well, nutrition is the foundation of your health, your weight management, and your muscle recovery, right? Whatever you put into your body will have an impact on how your body actually performs. And don't mean perform in the sense of going to the gym or, in a high performance sport. I mean, just day to day, how your energy levels are like, how alert you feel, how awake and recovered and refreshed you feel, and even just when you are going to sleep, how is your body repairing and recovering itself? Okay, training is super important as well. Don't get me wrong. But if you are looking at weight loss, which many of you that are watching this are probably going to be focused on, then nutrition is the thing that is going to be driving majority of the results. Like that's the first thing immediately you look at first. Okay. So this module is basically going to help you simplify essential concepts that will allow you to have that perspective on what will actually help you achieve lasting results. So the first most important concept we have to talk about is energy balance. What exactly is this concept of calories in and calories out? I'm sure many of you have heard this before. Oh, to lose weight, you need to have a calorie deficit and you're just going to exercise more, right? But obviously that's not the most, effective kind of advice. It's not very useful to just tell somebody, hey, get a calorie deficit. We will actually go into that in module 3, where we teach you exactly how do you plan for yourself. But to understand the basics of it, energy balance is the difference in terms of like how much energy is either net going in or coming out of you. And so calories, which is we are all very familiar with, are basically just a unit of energy. Okay. And when people say, not all calories are created equal, they are fundamentally wrong in saying that just because, again, a calorie is a calorie. It's like a unit of energy. It's like saying not all centimeters are created equal, not all kilometers are created equal, not all kilograms are created equal. It's just a way to measure something. And so the net balance is what determines where our weight goes. The quality of where we get the calories matters, but ultimately a calorie is still a calorie. And so when you talk about calorie balance, these three examples here kind of show you the three basic situations that you will encounter. The first one is that if you have more food coming in and your body's burning lesser calories than the amount of food that you're taking in, then you're going to have an energy surplus. Now, the energy has to go somewhere. For in our body, that's usually stored as ultimately stored as body fat. Sometimes it goes into muscle building if you are doing enough training to get the response. But for the most part, if you're putting on weight really quickly, you're probably just storing a lot of fat. Energy balance is where your calories coming in and your calories being burnt are pretty much around the same level. And so your body mass actually remains stable. Notice I said like body mass in terms of overall body weight, because the difference sometimes, even when your body weight stays the same, the difference in like your fat levels and your muscle levels can still change. Okay, so that's still something that can happen. Now, the last situation is this is the thing that we want if we are looking for weight loss and fat loss, is we want to see that there's an energy deficit, which is basically the amount of calories coming in is less than the amount of calories that are going out. Okay, so basic energy balance like this is actually more of a law of physics, it's a law of thermodynamics than anything else. And it means that by this understanding, if you have been eating a certain amount and you're not losing weight, you are definitely not in a calorie deficit. Okay, so just understand that concept because we always get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I only eat 1,200 calories, or I eat less than 1,000 calories, and I'm not losing weight. I'm not in a calorie deficit." I can tell you that the issue there is not so much that you are eating 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories and you're not losing weight. The issue is that the way you're tracking your calories and your perception of how much you're eating is very skewed, and that's fine because that's a human thing. Okay, we see that happen all the time. Now, what makes up your calories out, and why do we need to focus on this part or understand this part? Because the first thing a lot of people do with trying to lose weight is they try to go and exercise. And in this simple slide, you can already see the contribution to how much calories you're burning in a day. Each of these activities actually contribute. And if you're focusing on exercise, you can see it's only about 0 to 5% of the total calories that you burn. So if you're not exercising at all, it's 0%, right? But if you exercise and you exercise really, really hard, it's probably contributing maybe about 5% at the most. And so this is dependent on your exercise type and your exercise duration as well. Okay, so you can already see how inefficient it is to try to burn off all the calories that you're trying to eat because the amount that you're going to be burning is not going to be very, very high in the first place. The other levels to this that I've arranged it in is in increasing levels of contribution. So these are the things that primarily drive the amount of calories that are being burned. The second level here you can see is the thermic effect of food. So we already have something that's that already supports our goal and our focus of focusing on nutrition, which is basically the thermic effect of food, where the types of food that you eat impact your metabolism after you've eaten them. Okay, some impact them in a positive way, some impact them in a very neutral, to slight positive way. This is usually from eating more. Oops, sorry. This is usually from eating more protein and fiber, and making sure you have adequate hydration levels. Now, the next level down at 10 to 15% of contribution is your non-exercise activity. Now, this is just daily activity, all the things that don't contribute to intentional exercise. So the daily steps that you take, the fidgeting that you do, even my hand movement, things like this, the hours you stay awake, and even the energy availability also kind of impacts your non-exercise activity. What I mean by energy availability, when you have been dieting for a long time and you don't have as much energy floating around in you because you are dieting, right? You might actually start to feel more tired and your body will naturally try to reduce these non-exercise related activities. Okay. And the last one here, the green section, is the biggest contributor. And these are some things that, again, you don't have any immediate direct control over them, in the sense that you cannot change it immediately, but you can change it kind of over time. And this is the resting metabolic rate. So basically how many calories your body burns just to power this machine. And so that's impacted by a whole bunch of stuff here. You can see they're all interconnected. Your sleep, how over or undertrained you are, what's your energy availability, your hormonal profile, hydration levels, total body mass, like your bigger people tend to burn more calories, smaller people tend to burn less calories. Body composition, how much fat versus muscle you actually have, and nutrient balance, which is like in your body floating around what are the types of nutrients that are available to your body to be used. Okay, so straight away, calories out, you can see again the argument for I should exercise to lose weight is not holding very much water. So why is nutrition important for weight and fat loss then? To sum it up here, it's easier to just reduce your input to create a majority of your deficit. Because if the input side of the equation is just how much you are eating. If you try to burn off your calories through exercise, not only is it very, very inefficient because you're putting in a high amount of effort for a super low effect, but there's also this thing called a metabolic adaptation that your body kind of gets used to that, and it will conserve its energy a little bit better in the future, to kind of constrain and make use of whatever you're giving it. So your body's a survival machine in that sense, okay? And look, the type of food that you eat has a huge impact on how many calories you burn after eating it. Like I mentioned, if you eat more protein and fiber, you actually yield less of the calories from that because your body actually has to expend slightly more energy just to help with the breakdown. Okay, it also utilizes some of the energy from the food itself. So, example, if you eat 100 calories of protein versus 100 calories of fat, for the 100 calories of fat, you will yield after digestion probably something like 92 to 94 calories. And for protein, you probably will yield only about 70 calories from that. So it's a difference that adds up. Now, the biggest problem, as I mentioned, is that a calorie deficit is often misunderstood as a way, like a diet, but it's not a diet. The calorie deficit is basically just a principle and it's a law of thermodynamics. If you want your weight to go down, you want your fat to go down, you need to put your body in a situation that will get it to follow that path. So how do you develop good, sustainable habits while achieving this calorie deficit? That is the answer that you're looking for at this point. And this is where most people fail because most people will go to band-aid solutions that seem very attractive, like diets that just put you into super restrictive modes to kind of force you to lose weight. And the problem with those is while they are really good for the short term, they don't teach you any sustainable habits that you can actually use for the long term. Okay, so in module 3, that's what we are going to go through. We're going to go through a planning system, not a diet, but a planning system that is easy for you to follow. It's a 5-step process, and you can use that to build your own nutrition system and plan after you watch it. So that's it.
Awesome. I just
Awesome.
want to clarify with you when you talk about
Yes.
protein, right? Um, what would you say is like, is there any difference between going with animal protein versus plant protein?
Oh, if you're talking about the real significant differences like basic health and a general for somebody that's looking for general health and like general um what do you call it? Development of the body at a very general healthy level, it probably doesn't matter too much, to be honest. You could go and I've seen like even bodybuilders that are entirely vegan, still doing well, maintaining good muscle and all. You just have to take a little bit of extra effort or precautions to make sure you're getting adequate protein. But for the general person looking to get healthy, it doesn't really matter. Get a good combination of sources though. Yeah. If you want it from like plant and animal protein. The reality is that if you're trying to get all your protein from plant protein, it's not very realistic to get it only from whole foods. You probably will use a protein powder anyway, because the way that plants are made up in terms of their nutritional profile is that they are not very protein rich in the first place. So they come with like for the same unit amount, they come with a lot more like carbs and fats together with them as well. And so you probably want something like a protein powder that can help you boost up that protein level ratio compared to the other foods. So it's more of like just the nature of the way the food is. But if you talk about it from a um, more granular level, I would say yes, there is a difference, especially if you are probably trying to be maybe the most muscular person you can be, or maybe even from a sporting perspective, you want to really optimize the nutrition. You are probably better off going with more animal proteins. Number one, most of the animal proteins are a lot more bioavailable, so it's easily used and digested by the body. The other one is that most of the animal proteins are very complete. They have all the essential amino acids, and we don't have to like really vary the sources too much compared to plants. Like plants, you have to make sure you're eating a whole varied amounts of like legumes, and various other plant sources to really make sure you covered their whole spectrum. Yeah.
Okay. So you were saying as well is that obviously when you're going with the plant route, you're also getting the carbs and the fats that come along with it. So even if your
Yes.
goal is fat loss, then you obviously need to account for these in your calorie intake, right?
100%, 100%, yeah. So you'll be counting those calories as well. I mean, to be fair though, a lot of plants will generally have a higher amount of like fiber and stuff as well. So if you're generally eating like vegetarian or vegan food, I think vegan food tends to be on the lower calorie side by nature. Vegetarian food, maybe not so much. Especially like ethnic cultural vegetarian food tends to be really, really fatty and heavy. And I use just some cultural examples like Southeast Asian examples, especially, right? Like Chinese vegetarian food is very, very, very starchy. Indian vegetarian food is like full of curry, a lot of fats and stuff in the curries and all. So there's all these things that, um, they just because it's like vegetarian does not mean that it is like healthy because it can be extremely calorie dense as well. Yeah. So again, just look at the food for like what's the nutritional profile and then make your decisions from there. I have all the respect for people that want to be vegetarian for sure, you know. Yeah, there's no harm in doing there's no harm to your health in doing that as long as you take care of the protein amounts. Because the main issue for a lot of people that are just like naturally vegetarian, that are not aware of protein requirements, is that they end up unhealthy because they're not getting enough protein in and they're losing as they age, especially they know age-related sarcopenia, so they're losing the lean tissue that actually keeps them mobile and strong and healthy.
You also touched on that if you're eating like that, very likely we have to take in protein powders. So would you say then that supplements are actually a necessity rather than an option to take,
Uh,
or do you still have a choice depending on how you're actually putting your diet together?
yeah, I think you generally still have a choice because it just makes
Keeping in mind that
it
you're speaking to people 40 plus.
yes, correct. It just makes it way easier. Like again, you
Way
could.
easier.
Yeah. No pun intended. But you could try to get it all from solid foods. In fact, if you're eating animal proteins and stuff, no issue. For the most part, right? Like you could get that in. But it depends where you are from. Like, is it easily accessible for you? So a lot of the clients I deal with, like half of the clients I deal with are local to like Southeast Asia, right? The other half are like maybe spread out throughout the world, some North America, Australia, and all. So different areas have different food maps and environments that make it either easier or harder for you to get more protein. I can say here that I'm staying in Australia, it's very easy for me to get a lot of good protein sources because it's relatively economical. And the culture here is to cook for yourself anyway. No, people don't really do much takeout unless you're in the city. But in Singapore, people do take out all the time because it is like it's pretty convenient and it's relatively cheap. It's not cheap, but it's like relatively cheap. Saves people on cost and stuff. And even hawker food is also really like, easy to just get. So it really depends on your food environment. I will say though that in Singapore or like even Malaysia now, I see there seems to be this movement towards like making better health options available. So even like protein options, all this kind of stuff are some things that you can get a little bit more in these areas, but still predominantly all the cultural food are still going to be not the healthiest in terms of that profile.
All right.
Um, yeah, so I would say long-winded answer, but I would say for protein powder, for my clients in that situation, honestly, it's the easiest thing to just get extra calories in without pushing up the rest of the calories. You know, sorry, not get extra
Extra
calories,
protein.
extra protein in. Yeah,
Yeah.
not pushing up the rest of the calories. It's super super efficient. Yeah.
All right. The other thing is that we see a quite a shift. I don't know if it's a shift or if it's just that it's more available nowadays, but we see the people going through the supermarkets busy demonizing all types of food. What is your viewpoint on that? Is there really good versus bad food, or is
Oh
everything really
man.
just about moderation?
Oh man, don't even get me started on those people going into the supermarkets and stuff. To be honest, like if you are watching this, you are somebody that's sensible, you're somebody that wants to do things properly, right? And that's reasonable. Going to a supermarket and demonizing foods is not a very reasonable thing. Okay. Number one, that's a fear-mongering tactic that's meant to play on people's vulnerability and emotions and lack of education. Number two, again, it's a marketing tactic that it's meant to trigger you to think in that very ideological way of whatever the specific diet guru is trying to push. Again, that's why we don't teach diets. We only focus on the principles. And so there's no such thing as really a good food or a bad food. Think of it as a spectrum of some foods are more nutritious, some foods are less nutritious. What makes a food more nutritious? There is a bigger range of like micronutrient elements in there
Mm.
to some foods. And then there's some foods which are through maybe multiple forms of processing and all to make them more shelf stable, they reduce some of these micronutrient contents as well. Yeah, but look at the food and in context. There's no such thing as like this food is bad, this food is good. Like now I'm cutting as of this recording, I'm cutting down for my competition prep. But every day I still have a small bowl of chips. As part of my nightly wind down with my wife, like we watch TV, I'll eat a bit of chips. Sometimes she wants to get ice cream, I go and eat ice cream with her. These foods are not like unhealthy by any means, They're only unhealthy in terms of how much of them you eat and then how do they skew the calorie and the nutrient your macronutrient profile and all. So the poison is always in the dosage for foods. There's no such thing as like this food is good or bad for you per se. Yeah. The only exception I would make would be alcohol, where I would say the hard line is that alcohol is like poisonous to your body. So even in the smallest amounts, it's just like literally like putting poison into your body. So alcohol is one of those things where some people say, oh, if we drink some red wine, there's some benefits and all that. There are some potential benefits, but they're far away by whatever is the damage done by alcohol. So that's the only line I would draw. That being said, I think socially most people can tolerate a little bit of drinking here and there. But just know that with alcohol, there's always that risk. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so I think we'll call this module to a close here,
Yep.
because we're moving into the next module where we're actually going to talk about building out a nutrition plan. And I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that most of the people listening here, that's what they really want to hear, and that they're hoping to
100%.
get to is the practical application of it. But if there's any other questions that people have with regards to this particular kind of topic about the nutrition basics, just drop us a comment at the bottom, and we'll definitely get back to you on this. Other than that, we'll
100%.
see you in the next module.
See you guys.